What is up, you guys? This is JP, and today we're gonna talk about the best times to train to failure. All right, first things first, if you are a PlayStation fan, don't watch this video. You're not my friend and I don't like you. All right, onto the video. So I kind of have, not a rep, but I kind of have a consistent theme where I guess when I'm trying to take a bird's eye view of my content and look at my content from an unbiased view, I can kind of see how some people will think that I don't like training to failure or that I have a negative look on training to failure, which I don't. If sometimes I come off negative or pessimistic in regards to training to failure, it's only because there are so many advocates for it, and the advocates for it basically kind of shit on not training to failure, and they say that, you know, you're not gonna make as good gains, which is 100% not true. But I'm definitely not against training to failure, and I think that if utilized properly, then you can, you know, potentially get greater gains, or if you don't get greater gains and you get the same gains, you can at least, for those of you who like training to failure, can increase your adherence, and which makes you want to go to the gym more. And if that makes you want to go to the gym more, you're more happy, you know, maybe due to the placebo effect, maybe due to, you know, your performance being better because you're happier, you end up getting more gains indirectly through those means. So I definitely am pro training to failure if utilized properly. So right now I'm going to give you guys some good ways that you can implement training to failure. But first, I want to talk about training to failure, and kind of what supersedes this whole video is that the main reason why you should not train to failure and what you need to think about when you're training to failure is the effects it has on recovery. When you're consistently training to failure, the intensity in regards to effort goes up. Depending on the exercise you're talking about, this can definitely increase, you know, global fatigue and local fatigue for that that muscle group. Anyone, and if you've done this, you are, you know, anyone who's took a set of barbell back squats, high reps, even relatively close to failure, knows how torturous that is. I actually took a really hard set of 20 probably about 2 months ago, and this is the first time that I felt I was probably maybe a couple reps from throwing up. I'm not joking, it was that bad. But my point is that that's the whole point of why you shouldn't train to failure is effects on recovery. If you get too fatigued too often, too banged up, you don't kind of balance that, you're not actually adapting to that stimulus. You need to be able to adapt to that stimulus when you're outside of the gym. So that's the main thing you need to focus on when you're thinking about training to failure, is that it's just a lot more hard on the body than when leaving a few reps left in the tank. Now there's more to that, but I'm not gonna get into that because I've talked about failure a lot. But the first place you can implement training to failure is the last set on every exercise. Now again, I wouldn't do this for every single exercise because I wouldn't take a deadlift to true failure. And again, depending on who you ask, failure may have a slightly different definition. But again, like deadlifts, you could take to technical failure. You could take the last set of a barbell back squat to technical failure. But a good place is the last set of every exercise. If you have, let's just say, 3 sets or 4 sets on overhead press, you would take the 4 set, if that's your last set, to technical failure. And when you cannot get any more clean reps, you stop. Again, you have a lot of good quality sets before the last one where you're not taking it to failure. And again, you're kind of getting that, for those of you who like training to failure, you're kind of getting that, you know, little bit of, you know, you're scratching that itch that you otherwise probably aren't, because you know that it's bad to train to failure all the time. So again, you could do that for the last set of every single exercise. And in a weird way, this could actually increase volume, because if you're getting maybe a couple extra reps on that last set than you normally otherwise wouldn't, if you weren't taking that last set to failure, you could theoretically get more gains in that aspect as well. So the second place you can train to failure and still see great results is pretty much, and again, there are exceptions, but pretty much on any isolation exercise. Isolation exercises, while they might generate a lot of local fatigue to that muscle group, AKA you could take bicep curls or tricep exercises, they don't generate a lot of global fatigue. They're smaller muscles. So again, I could, you know, in my professional expertise, I could say that, you know, taking those to failure is definitely not going to be a bad thing. Again, going back to what I said originally, and you know, taking a set to failure and its effects on recovery, you might want to take off 1 or 2 more sets off the top of these exercises though. So if you normally would do 4 sets with 2 to 3 reps in reserve, you know, maybe do 3 sets to failure on these isolation exercises. So you do want to take maybe 1 set off the top and then train to failure on these exercises. So again, you don't generate too much, you know, fatigue overall, because even though they are isolation exercises, you don't want to get absolutely carried away. But in general, I would say most isolation exercises can safely be taken to failure and you'll have no issue with that. And you're not going to, you know, be leaving the gym limping or crawling out or throwing up like you would on a set of barbell back squats. Now, the last way that you can implement training to failure is by applying intensity techniques. And in this one, you might need to look at your whole workout and kind of change the whole kind of setup of the workout if you use too many of these. Let me give you an example. Let's just say you start with a barbell bench press for your first exercise. You get that done, and let's just say it's an upper day, so you're doing your whole upper body. And then you have your second exercise, which is pull-ups, and you're getting past the pull-ups. And let's just say your third exercise is push-ups. You could structure the push-ups in a way where you're doing myo reps. You know, if you don't know what myo reps are, it's essentially you take the first set to failure, and then you take very short breaks, and every single set after the first one, you don't have to do an unnecessary or crazy amount of reps because you're already kind of almost pre-fatigued from that first set taken to failure. So for example, on this push-ups, you could set it up in a manner where you take the first set to failure, or close to failure, and then you take about a 30 to 45 second break, and then every single set after that you take to failure. You wouldn't want to do too many sets. You could just do 3 or 4 sets after that first one. But the point is, this is a way that you can incorporate going to failure, but again, in an intelligent way. But you kind of have to look at the whole structure of the workout. Now, for example, you wouldn't want to do this push-up set with the mile rep mini sets. You wouldn't want to do that whole kind of cluster set formation for 4 or 5 total macro sets. You wouldn't want to do something nuts like that. That would be too much. But again, if you're just doing that one, you know, kind of push-up set with the 3 back off mile rep sets, and then that's it for the push-ups, that's perfectly fine. You don't want to get crazy with it. But again, you could kind of incorporate this tip with the first tip that I gave you. Is, let's just say you're doing biceps. You can take the last set to failure on biceps, but you can also incorporate drop sets on only that last set. So you would start with the weight, go to failure, maybe cut that weight by like 25%, go to failure, cut it by another 25%, then go to failure again, and then you're done. So adding intensity intensifiers such as, you know, mile reps, drop sets, you know, cluster sets, pause reps, all these things can kind of help you incorporate training to failure and kind of get that, you know, itch that you otherwise couldn't scratch. Again, just remember the first rule that I showed you and kind of apply it whenever you're trying to apply failure training, is just the effects it has on global fatigue and recovery. Be intelligent with how you implement it. If you're doing 4 sets on deadlift and you're going to failure on every single set, and on every single set of deadlift you're, you know, doing drop sets, that's probably not the smartest way to do it. Just make sure you're doing it in a smart way and you guys are gonna get the best gains. If you guys have any questions, comments, leave them down below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.